He dumped me because of my appearance, and today I bought his restaurant. The rain was relentless that night, pounding against the cracked windows of my tiny apartment like it wanted to come in and remind me of everything I had lost. I was sitting on the floor, my phone clutched in my trembling hands, staring at the last message he sent me. It wasn't just the words that broke me, it was the coldness behind them. "You're not the kind of woman I can be seen with. It's over." That was it. No goodbye, no apology, just a brutal dismissal, as if my entire existence could be erased with a single sentence. I remember running my fingers through my tangled hair, feeling the tears burn my skin. His words echoed in my head, replaying like a cruel song I couldn't turn off. We had been together for almost 2 years. I loved him fiercely, the way you love when you believe love will be enough. I supported him when his restaurant was barely surviving, stood by him when customers complained, even worked late nights washing dishes when his staff didn't show up. And yet, here I was, discarded, not because I betrayed him or hurt him, but because I wasn't beautiful enough for his standards. What made it worse was knowing he said it in front of someone else. A friend told me she overheard him bragging to a group of people at a bar, laughing about how he upgraded after leaving me. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to stop existing, because in that moment, I believed I wasn't worth anything. But pain has a strange way of planting seeds. That night, as I sat there in my darkest moment, something inside me shifted. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to begin a journey that would change my life completely, a journey of transformation, revenge, and self-discovery. I didn't just want to prove him wrong. I wanted to prove myself wrong, to silence that voice in my head that said I wasn't enough. I didn't have money, connections, or a perfect face. All I had was a broken heart, a bruised soul, and an ember of determination that refused to die. And that was all I needed. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and an ache deep in my chest, the kind of pain that makes you question if your heart is even still beating. The world outside moved on like nothing had happened. Cars rushed by. People hurried to work. The city breathed without caring that mine had just been shattered. I sat at the small kitchen table with a chipped mug of coffee, staring at the steam rising like it was trying to whisper the answers I needed. My reflection in the dark liquid didn't look like me. My cheeks were pale, my lips cracked, my hair messy. But it wasn't just the physical exhaustion, it was the emptiness in my eyes. I looked like someone who had been erased. That's when I remembered something my grandmother used to tell me. The best revenge is living well, but the sweetest revenge is becoming everything they said you could never be. Those words rang in my mind like a battle cry. I took a deep breath, grabbed a notebook, and began to write. At first, it was just a list, things I wanted to change, goals I thought were impossible. Lose weight. Fix my teeth. Learn about business. Start my own venture. It seemed ridiculous. I was a woman who could barely pay rent, and here I was writing like I had the resources of a millionaire. But something inside me was awake now, and I couldn't let it go back to sleep. I started small. I walked every morning, even when my body screamed to stay in bed. I replaced takeout with home-cooked meals, even if they were just simple recipes I found online. I sold some of my old clothes to pay for a gym membership. And I started reading books about business, self-development, and success stories of people who rose from nothing. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't quick. But day by day, I began to feel pieces of myself coming back. I started looking people in the eye again. I started smiling, not because everything was fine, but because I was learning that I could survive even when it wasn't. I didn't know it yet, but every small step I took was bringing me closer to the day I'd walk into his restaurant, not as a heartbroken woman begging for his approval, but as the new owner holding the keys to his empire. And when that day came, he wouldn't even see it coming. Weeks turned into months, and the woman who once cried herself to sleep was slowly disappearing. In her place, a new version of me was being built, piece by piece, with sweat, tears, and stubborn determination. The gym became my second home. At first, I was embarrassed to even be there. Surrounded by fit, confident people, I felt like an outsider. But I learned something important. Nobody was really watching me. Everyone was too focused on their own journey. That realization was freeing. I started lifting heavier, running farther, pushing harder. My reflection in the mirror began to change, not just my body, but the way I carried myself. My shoulders straightened. My chin lifted. My eyes started to sparkle again. One afternoon, while resting between workouts, I overheard a conversation that would light a fire in me. Two women were talking about a local business seminar, networking, entrepreneurship, investment opportunities. My old self would have ignored it, convinced that people like me didn't belong in rooms like that. But the new me? She wrote down the date and signed up that very night. Walking into that seminar felt like stepping into another world. Everyone looked so polished, so confident. For a moment, I felt small again, until a woman named Clara approached me. She had a warm smile, the kind that instantly disarms you. We started talking, and I learned she was a self-made businesswoman who started with nothing but a small bakery and turned it into a chain across the city. I told her a little about my story, not everything, but enough for her to see the fire in my eyes. She said something I'll never forget. If you want to win, stop playing on their field. Build your own. Those words became my mantra. I started attending more events, meeting entrepreneurs, soaking in knowledge like a sponge. I wasn't just changing my body anymore. I was changing my mindset. I was beginning to see possibilities where I used to see walls. Every time I felt tired or discouraged, I pictured his face. The smug grin, the dismissive tone, the way he told me I wasn't enough. And instead of breaking me, that memory fueled me. One day, I promised myself, I'd walk back into his life not for his love, but to take away the one thing he loved more than anything. The nights became my secret weapon. While the city slept, I sat at my small kitchen table with a notebook and my old laptop, researching everything I could about running a business. My search history was a mix of how to start a company, investment for beginners, and how to turn $100 into $1,000. I didn't have much, but I had time, and I was determined to make every second count. The transformation on the outside was becoming visible. People started noticing, complimenting me, asking if I was doing something different. But what nobody could see was the transformation happening on the inside. I no longer needed someone else's validation to feel worthy. I was building something far more powerful, self-respect. One evening, I ran into a mutual friend of his at the grocery store. She stared at me for a moment, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "Wow," she finally said. "You look different." I smiled politely, but inside I knew exactly what she meant. My ex would soon hear about it. And I wanted him to. But I wasn't doing all this just to look good. I was planning. Strategizing. I started keeping a folder labeled Project Phoenix, a plan for the business I would one day own. It didn't matter that right now it was just scribbles and screenshots. Every empire starts as a dream on paper. One day, while scrolling through local news articles, I saw something that made my heart stop. His restaurant, his pride and joy, was struggling. Staff quitting, bad reviews piling up, even rumors of debt. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him, almost. But then I remembered the way he laughed about me in front of others. I closed my laptop slowly, my mind racing. This was it. This was the crack in his fortress I had been waiting for. From that day on, every step I took was with one goal in mind, to one day walk into that restaurant, not as a customer, but as the owner. The first time I drove past his restaurant after that, I slowed down and looked at it differently. I didn't see a place that had once been the backdrop of my humiliation. I saw an opportunity. The bright neon sign was flickering, the paint on the walls faded. I noticed the way customers went in and came out quickly, unsatisfied. It was a shadow of the place I remembered, and I knew why. He had become arrogant, careless. When you think you can't lose, you stop trying to win. That night, I called Clara, the businesswoman I had met at the seminar. I told her about my idea, Not in full detail, but enough for her to understand I was serious. She listened quietly and then asked, "Do you have a plan?" "Yes," I said. "Not yet, but I will." She agreed to mentor me, but she made it clear. "You'll need capital, strategy, and patience. Revenge is only satisfying if you succeed first." So, I worked harder. I took on extra shifts at my day job, freelanced at night, and saved every penny. I sold furniture I didn't need, clothes I no longer wore. My apartment looked emptier, but my savings account started to grow. Every deposit felt like another brick in the empire I was building. And every time I felt tempted to quit, I thought about the moment I'd walk through those doors holding the deed to his restaurant. 6 months later, my life looked nothing like it used to. My body was strong, my posture confident, my wardrobe sharp. But the biggest change was in my network. I was surrounded by entrepreneurs, investors, and people who spoke about opportunities like they were a daily reality, not a far-off dream. Clara introduced me to a man named Victor, a real estate investor who often bought failing businesses, turned them around, and sold them for profit. When I told him about the restaurant, he laughed. "I know that place. It's been on the market before, but no one wants it. It's a sinking ship." I smiled. "Not if it's in the right hands." Victor studied me for a moment, then said, "If you're serious, show me your plan." I spent the next 2 weeks crafting the most detailed business plan of my life. Every page outlined how I would rebrand, redesign, and revive the restaurant. I included menu ideas, marketing strategies, cost projections, and even aesthetic mood boards. When I handed it to him, he raised an eyebrow. "You've done your homework," he said. "If you can come up with 40% of the purchase price, I'll help you finance the rest." That night I didn't sleep. My dream was no longer just possible, it was within reach. Raising the money became my obsession. I picked up side hustles I never imagined I'd do, delivering groceries, tutoring kids, even selling handmade crafts online. Every extra dollar went straight into my restaurant fund. But the universe has a strange way of testing you before giving you what you want. Just when I was getting close to my goal, my car broke down. The repair bill was almost half of what I had saved. For a moment, I thought it was over. I sat in my car, staring at the bill, feeling that old, familiar ache in my chest. But then I remembered something Clara once told me. "Winners don't quit when they're tired. They quit when they've won." I found another way. I sold the car instead of fixing it, used public transportation, and doubled down on my work. It wasn't easy, but every time I felt like complaining, I pictured the keys to that restaurant in my hand. 3 months later, I had the amount I needed. My hands shook as I transferred the money into the escrow account. The day was coming, and he had no idea. The morning I signed the final papers, the world seemed different. The sun felt warmer, the air lighter. My reflection in the office window didn't show the girl he dumped, it showed a woman who had rebuilt herself from the ground up. Victor shook my hand and said, "Congratulations. You're the new owner." It took everything in me not to scream from joy. But there was one thing left to do: deliver the news to him. I didn't call. I didn't text. I wanted the moment to be face to face. So I waited until a Friday evening, the busiest night of the week for restaurants. I walked through those doors wearing a sleek black dress, heels clicking against the floor. He saw me instantly. His smile faltered. I could see the confusion in his eyes. He recognized me, but I wasn't the woman he remembered. I was more. And that's when I dropped the words that would change everything. His eyes darted from my face to the papers in my hand. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice uncertain, as if he wasn't sure whether to be polite or defensive. I stepped closer, placing the documents on the counter between us. "I came to introduce myself," I said calmly, my tone steady. "I'm your new boss." For a second, he laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when he scanned the papers, my name listed as the owner, his smile faded entirely. His hands trembled slightly, and he swallowed hard. This can't be real," Oh, it's very real, I said. You see, you once told me I wasn't good enough to be seen with. And now, every single paycheck you earn will have my signature on it. The silence that followed was delicious. I could see the staff watching from the kitchen doorway, some wide-eyed, some hiding small smiles. It was the kind of scene you don't witness every day, a man facing the consequences of underestimating someone who refused to stay down. I didn't stay long. I simply handed him a copy of the transition schedule and left, my heels echoing through the room like a victory drumbeat. Over the next few weeks, the transformation began. The faded walls were repainted, the menu was reimagined, the marketing completely revamped. I hired a talented chef, updated the decor, and rebranded the restaurant under a new name. Some nights, I would catch him staring at the changes in silence, clearly hating that every improvement was my doing. He still worked there, at least for now, because firing him immediately would have been too easy. No, I wanted him to watch as I turned his failing dream into my thriving empire. The customers noticed the difference almost instantly. Reviews turned positive. Tables filled again. Word spread quickly that the new owner had brought the place back to life. And with every success, I stood taller. One Friday night, the restaurant was packed. Laughter filled the air, plates clattered, and music played softly in the background. A group of women at the bar were whispering, glancing at me, clearly recognizing me from some piece of local gossip that had circulated. He was working behind the counter when one of them asked me, "Is it true you bought this place from your ex?" I smiled, taking a sip of my drink. "Not from him," I said. "Over him." Their laughter was the kind you can feel in your bones, pure, unfiltered approval. And when I glanced at him, I saw the truth in his eyes. He realized too late what he had thrown away. It didn't stop there. I opened a second location within a year. This one was in a prime spot downtown, and it became an instant hit. Soon, my name was being mentioned in local business magazines, and I was invited to speak at events about entrepreneurship and resilience. Every stage I stood on, every article that featured my story, was another silent message to him: you don't get to define me. Clara attended the opening of my second restaurant, hugging me tightly. "I told you," she whispered. "The best revenge is becoming everything they said you couldn't be." Eventually, I no longer needed him to work for me. By then, the restaurant was thriving, and I decided to let him go, not out of anger, but because I had moved beyond needing him in my orbit. When I called him into my office, he avoided eye contact. "I guess this is it," he muttered. "Yes," I said gently. "You see, I'm not the kind of woman who holds on to people who don't see my value. That's what you taught me." And with that, he was gone. Years later, I was walking through the city when I spotted him sitting alone at a small cafe. He looked tired, older, the spark in his eyes dimmed. He didn't notice me at first, but when he did, his face froze. We locked eyes for a moment that felt like a lifetime. I offered a polite smile and kept walking. Because the truth was, my victory wasn't owning his restaurant. My real victory was never needing his validation again. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for, lessons wrapped in heartbreak, rejection, and moments that feel like the end of the world. But those moments? They are often the beginning of something much greater. When someone told me I wasn't good enough because of how I looked, it hurt more than words can say. But looking back, I realized that their cruelty was a gift in disguise. It forced me to dig deeper, to find strength I didn't know I had. We live in a world obsessed with appearances, status, and instant validation. It's easy to believe the lies others tell us about ourselves. But the most important validation comes from within. It's the quiet voice that tells you to keep going, to keep fighting, even when the odds feel impossible. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your power, rewriting your story, and rising above the noise to become the person you were always meant to be. If you're watching this and you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or discarded, know this: your worth isn't defined by anyone else's standards. Your strength isn't measured by how others see you, but by how fiercely you refuse to give up on yourself. So whatever storm you're facing right now, remember, inside you is the power to rebuild, to reinvent, and to rise stronger than ever before. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to see more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Because your story matters. And sometimes, the greatest victories come from the darkest moments.